And the re-establishment of the indigenous monarch is led by a man who understands God and his will. Chief Apostle Nonunga. By any stretch of imagination, South Africa is a genocidal establishment. The ANC perpetuated invasion and occupation of our indigenous monarchs. They have destroyed our nationhoods. They have destroyed our religion. They have destroyed our culture. They changed our identity. Today we call ourselves South African when we are not South African. That's genocide, my brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to another episode of The People's Eye. We're bringing again my brother here, Dingizwe, from the Indigenous Forum. He's the director there. Last time we spoke a lot about the foundation of the establishment of the country that is called South Africa. He was clarifying how illegitimate a country it was according to international law. We thought of bringing him back today just to unpack these issues more. Today we'll be focusing on the genocidal establishment of South Africa. He's going to unpack that aspect of the establishment of this country. These are necessary topics. What I like, he doesn't deal with issues from the surface, but he's going deeper. If you didn't watch the episode where we're talking about the first episode where we invited him, please do go back to our page. It's very insightful and very informative. My brother, welcome once more to The People's Eye.
Angibonge mnakethu to be hosted again by this beautiful platform in the sense that it gives us an opportunity to share our historic facts. It gives us an opportunity to relate our historic facts to the applicable law. Kungago kubaluleke kakhulu mnakethu, you are doing a very good job to educate our people. We are bringing education that they can't find at school. Sometimes even at tertiary level, they don't find it. Ngiyabonga to be here once again.
Yeah.
I feel at home.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not basically history. We're not dredging up old issues for the sake of dredging them up, but we're talking about those issues, the foundations, and so that we are able to understand the present situation in the country as it is now. It's better to understand the beginning and then you'll understand the present. I think that's the whole purpose of doing this. We're not rewriting history. We're just reflecting and trying to put matters into perspective, so to speak. This topic, genocidal establishment of South Africa, you'll have to unpack it to us. But first thing first, we need to understand what genocide is. Somebody will just think, I know, these are people who are taking pangas or taking guns and try to kill a particular race. But the meaning of it is broader, I guess. I'm not sure if you can just unpack it for us so that we will start from the right understanding of it.
Yeah, I'm sure you're very right when you say the topical understanding of genocide by people is when they think people are taking arms by and Bantu Bayafa, like what happened in Rwanda, they understand genocide from that perspective. In the context of South Africa, in understanding what genocide is, let us go to the Genocide Convention of 1948. The Genocide Convention of 1948 defines a genocide as an act committed with an intent to destroy in a whole or part a national, an ethnical, racial, or religious group.
Okay.
Now, this is how it is defined by international law. And remember that the crime of genocide, the applicable law is international criminal law, which sits with ICJ. Now, for you to broader understand, you need to understand what these groups means, like national, ethnical, racial, or religious group.
Yeah.
For our listeners and our viewers to understand this, I'm going to pay attention on two groups.
Yeah.
The national and religious group.
Okay.
How is a national group is defined? How is it defined?
Yeah.
It's defined as a large body of people united by common descent, history, culture, and language, inhabiting a particular territory. That is a nation.
Okay.
That is the definition of a nation, right? A large body of people united by common descent, common history, common culture, common language, inhabiting a particular territory. Now, that is defined again in terms of the law, Article 15 of the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights.
Yeah.
Let's go to the second group, a religious group.
Yes.
That group has a belief and worship a superhuman power, especially in a god or gods. That's religious group. Now, I guess we're back to history.
Yeah.
Let's go back to ground zero.
Yeah.
Ground zero ngupi. Ground zero is when Europeans came here. When the invaders came here, who did they found? They found a body of people who were united by common descent, by common history, by common culture, and common language. So those people were nations. Let me spell them out.
Not one body of people.
No, various bodies.
Various bodies. Yeah.
You've got the Zulus.
Yes.
You've got the Swatis. You've got the Goring Haikona. You've got the Baroka. You name them.
Yeah.
Those are nations, not tribes. Ndobuya kuyo le tribe.
Yeah.
That's where now genocide starts.
Yeah.
Now, the religion aspect, that body of people, they had the ways of worshipping their God and their gods.
They had their own religion.
They had their own tradition of worship. That is why you name all these other, if you can go to Exodus 20, somewhere, I think it's 24 and 25, there's a law, there's an instruction by God that says, you shall sacrifice for me your cow, your lamb, your sheep rather, your goat. Kusho uNkulunkulu lokho. And who are practicing this ritual? The indigenous people, isn't it?
Oh, definitely they were. They have been, they still are.
They still are practicing that. That is an instruction from God. Exodus 20, verse 24 and 25. Read it. But today, we are told, now go and logo, it's demonic. You have to do our ritual that we have given you. You are destroying what God has given us. And it has been destroyed. Today, bandu ngahlaba nje yo bayibita SPCA. That's genocide. They have changed our customs and imposed their customs on us.
Okay. So this changing of our customs and imposing their customs on others, on us, is that classifies as genocide?
What was their intention of imposing their traditional customs or culture on us and negating our own? What was the intention behind that?
Obviously, was to kill what is us.
Exactly. That's genocide. And you must remember that South Africa was established by invaders. South Africa was not established by the indigenous monarchs. The state called South Africa today is an act of British Parliament of 1909.
Yeah.
After the South African invasion of 1908. So if you go back to the reason why Europeans came to our shores, you will find the intention. And it's very important. See kuyo le reason le because ibaleke kakhulu. We will begin to understand that Europeans are not here by chance. Le history safundiswa yona that we were taught, they only discovered here because they were going to India.
Wanted to establish a refreshment station.
It's a lie. Mnagetu, it's a blue lie. But then before we go there, let us agree on historic facts.
Yeah.
Let us agree that indigenous monarchs were invaded. Is that a historic fact? It's a question. Let me help.
Yeah. Yeah.
We talk of 100 years frontier war in what today is called the Cape, whether it's East and the West.
Yeah.
They were done jointly. From, I think it's from 1877, from 1778, yes, to 1878.
Yeah.
from 1778 to 1878, if I'm not mistaken, but it was 100 years of war, belligerent war of occupation.
Yeah.
That is a fact, because those kingdoms were invaded. In the kingdom where I come from, I was born in Boroka. People don't even know that there's Boroka Kingdom. Today you call it Palabora. That's where I was born. That kingdom has been a kingdom from 625 AD. You can even search on it.
Yeah.
Anthropological reports are there that in the 700s AD, but Palabora were a state.
Yeah.
They had an economy. They had a governance. They had a defined territory. Now, they were invaded by João Albacini, Portuguese.
Yeah.
It's a fact that the indigenous kingdoms or indigenous monarchs were invaded. That's a historic fact.
For sure.
It's an historic fact again that the occupiers or the invaders of our indigenous monarchs are Europeans. It's a fact.
No, that
let's agree on that.
Yeah.
And who are those? The Dutch, the English, the Portuguese, the Germans, the French. And they culminated their invasion and occupation with the Berlin Conference in 1885. Those are historic facts.
Yeah.
Now, their intention, the Europeans' intention to come to our shores, emanates from the instructions that they got from Pope Nicholas V in 1452, the 18th of June in 1452.
Yeah.
When Pope Nicholas V took out a blueprint of invasion. In that blueprint, he instructs his soldiers to go and invade. It's there in black and white.
Yeah.
You must go and conquer. Invasion has an intrusive effect. It's got intention. You must go and conquer. You must gain control of those lands by force. You must fight those kingdoms when you get them there. And you must bring them under your dominion. You must subjugate them. He comes again, the same Pope, with Romanus Pontifex of the 8th January 1454. Here he becomes very shrewd. He says again, you must invade them. And you must search them out.
Yeah.
Now, to search out means you must carefully look for them and find them. And after finding them, you must capture them. And after capturing them, you must vanquish them. You must overcome them. And do what? Subdue them. Do you see any refreshment station there?
No. It was a big political plot, you know. It was not about passing by.
It was not passing by. Their being here is intentional.
Yeah.
But the question is, who did these invaders find when they came here? They found indigenous monarchs who were nations.
Yeah.
It's all known. This thing is desktop. We are not inventing anything like you said. We are just going back and defining the history, aligning our history with the law and what is happening to the present.
Yeah. No, you clarified it and you referenced a lot in our last discussion. I would encourage the listeners and viewers to refer back to that interview. It's still it's still available here on People's Side. They can just check it and reference and sort of double check for themselves. Yeah.
But then, hold on. There's an interesting part here. These invaders, these European invaders, these European occupiers who occupied our indigenous monarch, at the time of invasion, did they possess statehood? Did they? Were they states when they came here? That's a question. I mean, was Jan van Riebeeck, General de Almeida, or Vasco da Gama?
No. They came as private companies, right? The Dutch East India Company, they were a company.
Oh, so they did not possess statehood. Remember, the indigenous monarch, they possessed statehood because they had their defined territory. Yeah. They had their permanent population.
Yeah.
They had their own governance. And that state was invaded, isn't it?
True, they found the state.
Thank you. They found the state.
Not a state, states.
They found states. Now, they invaded those states. Now, look at these guys, eh? Particularly the Afrikaner. Eh? When they came here, were they Afrikaner?
No.
Who were they? They were Dutch. Now, how did they become Afrikaner all of a sudden? I will tell you why they became Afrikaner. Because they understood that they have to legitimize themselves and be part of their lie. Afrikaner means African. And how did they become Afrikaner? Because at that stage, they had power. They imposed themselves on our territory. They imposed themselves on our sovereignty. Together with the British, they created South Africa. Their intention was to destroy our nationhood that they found as they were invading.
And that is genocide.
That is genocide.
But look at who's complaining about genocide today. Who's complaining more? Or rather, who's really complaining about genocide?
Well,
is it not them?
Look.
No, just to...
Those guys are comedians. Don't take them serious. They're comedians. They believe in their own lie. Do you understand?
Yeah. You see something I came across. I didn't know much about this. There's a group here called the... what do they call themselves? The Boer Legion. Have you heard about them? There was even a court case where this guy, Grandland Michael Bray, he died and then he bequeathed them $2.1 million. But now his brothers and children went to court and said, no, he was delusional or something. He was fixated on this genocide that does not exist. And then they went to court trying to get the money back. Just to bring that up.
I don't take them serious. Do you know why I call them comedians? These guys, they know their own history, especially the Dutch. They came here in 1652 by the Recher, the Goedehoop, and the third one, which was what? Whatever that was. They know they are indigenous to Netherlands.
Yeah.
Even their language is Dutch. There is no language called Afrikaans. Now, you see how naive our politicians are in this country. They allow nonsense to prevail. They allowed the language Afrikaans to be imposed as a language. Now, if you go back to 1976, the youth at that stage, led by Ubaba Biko, may his soul rise and evolve for the restoration of the indigenous kingdoms. I'm going to come to that later. Afrikaans, it's not a language. Afrikaans, it's not a culture. Their language is Dutch. Their culture is Dutch. There is nothing African about the Dutch people that are here. So they cannot continue to call themselves Afrikaner. Afrikaner means African. How African are they when they cannot even speak indigenous language in Africa? Every word or dialect that you find in that language, you'll find it in Netherlands. Now, how are they now African all of a sudden? So they're delusional, honestly. If they can prove that their ancestry, it's in Africa, if they can prove that their language is Tekwi or Tam or Nguni, or Sutu or whatever, then we can start talking. But if they cannot bring that to the court of law, they're delusional and they're liars. And they believe in their own lie. And the whole world is believing that. Can you imagine? Most especially the United Nations. The United Nations believe in the nonsense of the Afrikaner. So is those politicians who are thinking, those global politicians who are thinking, the ANC or South Africa is mistreating the Afrikaner. We are not mistreating any Afrikaner.
And there's no genocide as such when it relates to that.
What genocide is that? It's the other way around. That is why we're talking about it here. They have destroyed our nationhoods. They have destroyed our religion. They have destroyed our culture. They changed our identity. Today we call ourselves South African when we are not South African. That's genocide, my brother. Now, honestly, look at it from that perspective. Now, South Africa becomes the top nation on the list.
Yeah.
And being Mthembu becomes secondary. It's a tribe. It's no longer a nation.
Yeah.
They've concocted a nation called South Africa.
Yeah.
What do you call that? Isn't that genocide? Isn't that an intent to destroy what was there as a nation, which is still there as a nation, but you have relegated it to a tribe? That's genocide. So the South African establishment is based on genocide. I would love to delve into the perpetuation of genocide.
Okay.
I think there's one man who's going to like this. Judge President Hlophe. Well, I still call him Judge President Hlophe. He spoke much against Roman Dutch law.
Yeah.
Roman Dutch law is a perpetuation of occupation and a perpetuation of genocide. You ask me why and how.
Yeah.
The law says, or legal maxim says,
Yeah.
the customs of the people are their laws.
Yeah.
The customs of the people are their laws.
Yeah.
I want you to show me the indigenous custom in any legislation in this country. Show it to me.
Now, I'm just trying to think hard, but I'm not a law
Nothing.
scholar or anything.
You don't have to be a scholar. You see, in our law and our custom, a land is never for sale. And land is never mortgaged. And the land is the source of our livelihoods and our economy. But let's come back to the laws.
Yeah.
Lana, I'm going to go a little bit into the Bible. Bengifuna sifunze Esther 13, verse 2 to 5. Let me apologize firstly to my spiritual leader, Professor Nongunga. This is the verse that he likes. It's a verse that actually depicts the ordainment of kings by God. And it further shows how Roman law became the global law. You find it on Esther 13, verse 2 to 5. Bengicela usifunzele yona bayive ukuthi ithini.
Yeah. Esther 13, verse 2. It starts, but when I asked my counselors.
Yes.
Yeah. But when I asked my counselors how this might be accomplished, one that excelled the rest in wisdom and fidelity, and was second after the king, a man by name.
Iyaphazamisa.
Yeah.
Ngicela ukufunzela yona.
Yeah, please. It's
Asiqale
slower on my
ku-verse
side.
2.
Yeah.
Esther 13, verse 2 to 5.
Yeah.
And it reads thus. Whereas I reigned over many nations and had brought all the world under my dominion, I was not willing to abuse the greatness of my power, but to govern my subjects with clemency and lenity. Ngicela underline lapho. With clemency and lenity,
Yeah.
that they might live quietly, without any terror, and might enjoy peace, which is desired by all men. That they might enjoy peace, which is desired by all men.
Yeah.
But when I asked my counselors how this might be accomplished, one that excelled the rest in wisdom and fidelity, and was second after the king, a man by name, told me that this is the most important part of this. Told me that there was a people scattered through the whole world which used new laws and acted against the customs of all nations, despised the commandments of kings, and violated by their opposition the concord of all nations. Wherefore, having learned this, and seeing one nation in opposition to all mankind, using perverse laws and going against our commandments and disturbing the peace and concord of the provinces subject to us. Now, there was a people scattered through the whole world which used new laws and acted against the customs of the nations, despite the commandments of the kings. Who are those people? Who brought us new laws? Who violated the commandments of our monarchs? Who?
Tell us. You want to implicate yourself?
You want me to implicate myself? You look, I'm not implicating myself against anybody. I'm just telling the truth, the historic truth and the biblical truth. And coincidentally, if you go to your Bible right now, you will not find Esther 13. It has been expunged from the Bible. From 11 to 16, those chapters has been expunged. And this is for the reason why they were expunged. So, Roman Dutch law, it's a genocidal tool against the customs of our monarchs, our kings. Because we are no longer practicing our customs.
True.
Now the question is South Africa not a genocidal establishment? By definition of law and the practicality on the ground.
Yeah, the law is
by
clear.
any stretch of imagination, South Africa is a genocidal establishment.
Okay. Yeah, I've been following what you're saying. You still want to unpack it, or should we go to what needs to be done? What needs to be done?
It's very interesting. It's very simple. If something is not right, what do you do with it? Dispose of it, isn't it?
Yeah, dispose it, yeah. I mean, in our last conversation, you proved, referencing to international law, that
Yes.
this is not a legitimate state.
Yes.
And there's no way it can be legitimized in any way or form. So what next? Well, how do we then go to the basics and reestablish the states we had? Is that feasible?
But before we go there,
Yeah.
what does the international community say about genocide? You see, anything that we do, we have to be within the parameters of the law they've created.
Yeah.
To a larger extent, it is in our favor. The question is, do we know how to bring that law to life? That is the question.
Yeah.
Now, if genocide is a criminal offense, and we have proven here that we are living in a crime scene, like you said in our previous discussion, that South Africa is a crime scene. Yes, it is a crime scene. Now, you start asking yourself, Good see, our brothers who are now in government, who took over from an illegitimate government. A government that is genocidal to their own existence. Imagine. That sort of naivety is way beyond measure, isn't it? Are they not complicit in the act of genocide by managing that illegal establishment? Let me go to the ANC. I will not even mention DA. Let me go to EFF. Let me go to INCAT. Who are the Indigenous Peoples Organization? Who are they? Let me go to MK. Let's go to ATM. Are they not complicit in continuing with what the invaders have started when they invaded our nations, our sovereign nations, destroyed our nationhood, established an illegal nation called South Africa, an illegal state called South Africa, and they took over that state with its systems, and they want to rule us with a foreign system when they are indigenous people. They are complicit.
Yeah, actually, no political organization is talking about taking the monarchs back to their place. They're talking about recognizing them as some custodian of culture. Small, a very insignificant person there looking after a culture of a certain group, making sure that it exists there for whatsoever reason. Some of them are even reasons like tourism.
My brother, what you've just mentioned is very true. Look at, is it chapter 12 of the Constitution, that which speaks of traditional leadership? There's no political force. When nationhood prior invasion had a political force, the monarchs had political force. Why has particularly the ANC, who claims to be the major liberator of our people? I'm saying they're not the major liberator of our people. They're the major conspirators against the invaders and the occupiers of our indigenous monarchs. Because if you go back to when ANC was established in 1912, the ANC spoke of enfranchisement. Enfranchisement, what is enfranchisement? The right to vote. This is what the ANC was formed for, to fight for the right to vote. Now, how did that vote come about? What system is that voting? It's a colonial system.
Yeah.
They imposed that system after they have invaded our indigenous monarchs. Now, why doesn't the ANC fight for the restoration of those monarchs? Who was the ANC fighting for and against? Well, today I can clearly tell you with confidence that the ANC perpetuated invasion and occupation of our indigenous monarchs. I'll give you a practical example. In 1914, Saul Plaatje and his crew, they went to the Queen They said to the Queen, listen, we want to be part of your system.
Yeah.
We don't want to be left out. Left out of who? What? The colonial system? Excuse me, who was the ANC formed for? If they were formed for the indigenous people, they would not have gone to the Queen to beg the Queen to be part of the system. They would have followed where Bambata had left 5 years prior. Because Bambata was the last fighter against invasion, against occupation. Who's speaking about Bambata today? We are hero-worshipping people who perpetuated our occupation and our invasion. That is sick. Now,
but are we not in a position of no go back? We cannot go back. We've been brainwashed so much to believe in this system that we advocate for it. Throughout Africa, we're advocating for it.
You're very right. You're very right. We are in a position, what is so interesting is that the law allows us to go back. The law allows us to go back.
Yeah.
But if you don't have, I don't want to use this term, but if you don't have wise politicians, let me rather use it. If you don't have wise politicians who are proud of who they are, you'll find people that perpetuates the system without being conscious of the genocidal character of that system. And it's throughout the continent, except for Eswatini, where the king rules. And everybody's against that, and everybody's fighting Mswati to say what's the last what?
Absolute monarch.
Bafuna ukuthi abe democratic monarch. Where have you ever seen that? Democracy is an epidemic to our customs. It's a foreign culture. We can't continue with that. I mean, every 5 years, Tsatsi president said job. Imagine that. Have you ever realized that?
Yeah.
What comes out of it? Every 5 years, Seti Jov, not the president. Okay? But our minerals every single day ayapuma out of our ground, out of the so-called South Africa, and they're going back to those multinational companies, countries to develop their economy, not ours. Now, you asked a question before I went into this sermon. When I started Indigenous Forum, I looked for an organization to align our intelligentsia with. Trust me, by sheer coincidence, I had visited His Majesty King Zwelibanzi Dalindyebo, and my cousin, Chief Zipho Mkhatshwa, said, "No, man, I want us to go to Chief Apostle Nongunga's Thanksgiving." I didn't want to go for some reason, but the Spirit said, "Go." There was this war within me, but ultimately I went. I was sitting there, I remember on that occasion, Ubaba Mkhize was there as well. But what was spoken on the day was the restoration of the indigenous monarchs, the restoration of our sovereignty as indigenous kingdoms. Then I said, wow. And the chief apostle articulated that as well. Then I said to my cousin, I would love to meet Chief Apostle. And he arranged that meeting. I met him on the 21st of December. And he told me what transformation in the African transformation movement meant. ATM as a movement wants to transform the indigenous monarchs to what they have been before. I looked at him, I said, wow, you are the first man of God that actually spoke the truth of God politically. God created kingdoms, and to kings he gave wisdom. And to kings he gave spiritual leaders like Obabe Nonunga. And to the kings, God gave the kingdom's judges who are upholding the law of the kings and the kingdoms and God. So the structure is the spiritual leader, the king, the judge. And bahamba ngamuphi umthetho, God's law. Now that is why Esther 13 was expunged from the Bible. Because these nations that brought these new laws, they were defying the laws of the kings, the commandments of the kings, the concord of the nations that which God has ordained on them. Now, I said, then ATM is an alliance to the Indigenous Forum because we have shared value. That is the restoration of the indigenous monarchs. When I further engaged Chief Apostle Unonunga, he indicated how Azania came about. He gave me the background of who Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe is and where does he come from. Who Bantu Biko is and where does he come from. And if you will remember, Bantu Biko is on the Black Consciousness movement, and Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe is on the Pan-African Congress of Azania. Both Ubantu Biko no Sobukwe basebenzisa Azania. Now, what is this Azania? Why not South Africa? It's a defiance of the illegal and genocidal establishment of South Africa. And where does this Azania comes from? The 12th Apostolic Church of Christ, where Professor Nonunga is the chief apostle. Wow. Some kind of connection here. And my political background comes from the PAC. My school of thought comes from the PAC. And the PAC school of thought comes from the 12th Apostolic Church, which Professor Nonunga is the chief apostle. So our coming together is some divine intervention.
Yeah, true. I understand, but I still have a question going back to the foundation of things, to the genesis of things now. When white people arrived, there was no Christianity in Africa.
Yes.
Okay, now you are pushing a case of returning back to the roots.
Yes.
But not somehow, you have used the book they brought with them to justify why we should go back to our roots. So to another person, it may seem as a disconnect from what you're talking about, advocating for. Because now we're using the same book to justify returning back to our roots. This very same book that brought us this problem. Do you get my question?
I get your point. There's no disconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends how you use the truth that you find in any writing, be it the Bible or anywhere. For instance, you are quite right. I had the very same notion, trust me, before I met Apostle Nongunga. There is no way you can align the restoration of the indigenous monarchs with Christianity. But then what is Christianity? Let's start questioning the establishment of Christianity. In land. Now, Christianity comes from a noun Christ. Christ Latinized from Christos. Christos means the chosen one in Greek. So Christ is not a name. It's a noun that you were a chosen one. So how many chosen ones did God choose up until today? So a lot of people don't understand what Christ is. Christ is not a name. It's a noun. And
so, as you say, the basic meaning of it is the chosen one.
The chosen one. And why was he chosen? Let me go to the very same book, Matthew 5, 17 and 18. It says, I have not come here to change the law of the prophets. I have come to fulfill that law. And no one must ever change that law. Which law? The one you read about in Esther 13. The law of the kings, the commandments of the kings. Now, didn't we have kings in Africa? Yes.
Indeed, yeah.
So, Christianity, it's a sect or a cult established for a purpose. Now, when I went deep into the spirituality Gababu Nongonga, invasion was brought in by the church. The Papal edicts, Dam Diversus, Romanus Pontifex, Inter Caetera, Requiremento, and other edicts. Here is a church led by Professor Chief Apostle Ononunga that says we must restore our Africanhood by restoring and re-establishing the kingdoms. In the church, he preaches that restoration in his sermon every single Sunday or whenever he has an opportunity to preach about that. Isn't that church an antidote to the invasion?
Well, it is. And I think as Black people, what we managed to do when it comes to the church,
Yes.
we have managed to establish our own churches in such a way that they conform with our traditions, customs, culture, like the Apostolic Church you're talking about. There are many other churches like Shembe. There are many other sort of African churches.
Yes.
I think we did well there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you look at any religion, it's any religion. The intention is peace, harmony. You know, it has good intentions. It's whether it's African, whether it's Hindu, whether it's Christian, whether it's Islam. The intentions are peace, harmony, and all those things. Then there are bad elements that are introduced. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Now, for me, Chief Apostle Nonunga has been the voice of inspiration to Indigenous Forum. In the sense that he recognizes, as a man of God, what God has created and what needs to happen. And he preaches that which God has ordained. I've not seen many men of God preaching that truth by Isaba.
But as you say, the quote, the book of Esther, you said it has been expunged from the Bible. So
yes, it has been expunged.
Someone to research deep to find those books that have been expunged.
Fortunately, lamalanga sinabo Google bayasigugulisha yabona lento. So sekuba benoncuka ngimthathele lo msebenzi wokukhuluma ngeBhayibheli. Mina ngikhuluma ngomthetho and the historic facts, but then I had to use the biblical edicts to sort of emphasize the argument yaba buhlophe to say, you know, the Roman Dutch law, it's not our law. So I'm taking it further from the biblical point of view. Yalabandu who came with perverse laws and imposed their laws on us. So that will give traction to Babelop's argument. You know, fortunately, I was in East London on Saturday, the 5th of April. I managed to speak to Babelope, Besugu rally ye ATM, whereupon I indicated to Babelope, good see, as a jurist, you know, as an esteemed jurist, we cannot continue with South Africa. And Ubabe Nongunga has given us the spiritual direction.
Okay.
The spiritual direction which and quite a number of monarchs have agreed upon. The re-establishment of the United Kingdoms of Azania.
Okay.
As a solution, because South Africa is not a solution. South Africa will never be a solution.
Okay.
South Africa will continue to be a problem. There are those who are proudly singing the national anthem and all that kind of stuff. That is a problem. So, EATM and MK, they have a relationship. They have effect. EMK has been talking about the recognition of the traditional leaders. EATM speaks of the restoration of the indigenous monarchs, which are termed traditional leaders with no political force, with no sovereignty. So the two can be brought in together. We must understand that ATM and MK, they can never be the leaders of the indigenous people. They are the servants of the indigenous monarchs as indigenous people, because each and every one of them in those organizations, they come from one particular monarch or the other. So they can come together and not even fight, but go and reclaim peacefully the re-establishment of the indigenous monarchs.
I get you, but give us a picture of, in case that happens, the monarchs are re-established strongly, giving back their land, their powers and everything. What do you give us a picture of what becomes of this country we call South Africa? We were mentioning, you were saying a United
Kingdoms of Azania.
United Kingdoms of Azania.
Yes.
How is that going to operate? We'll be having different countries. Could be how many of them? 11, 12, 13, 15 countries, maybe 20 countries.
No. Remember, the original kings are known.
Yeah.
We don't have many kingdoms. We don't. I will not detail it.
Are kingdoms permanent?
Pardon?
Are kingdoms permanent?
Yes. You want to know how the picture is going to look like, right?
Okay, because I'm thinking we're having nations that are 400 years old, 300 years old. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the youngest could be the Zulu nation, the youngest nation, in that sense, that what we're talking about. So what happens to the Zulu nation?
That is an internal matter between the monarchs.
Oh, okay.
You see, the thing is, we must never let the system come up with that argument and come up with that narrative as if we are different. This brings me to a serious concern by those who claim to be First Nation.
Yes.
Who are based in Western Cape and Eastern Cape, right? I was talking to the Queen of Dingizwe on Saturday after the ATM rally. She said to me, they are the First Nation. They are the First Nation. As it's the African continent. Now it's the African continent. Who is the First Nation? Because when you are saying there's a First Nation, you're actually saying there's a Second Nation or a Third Nation.
No, I was raising the point, thinking about there were wars, there were conquests, there were subjugations.
Yes.
So which really created new monarchs. There was created new monarchs.
Yes.
And with time, they will still create new monarchs.
Look,
it's a process.
That is a family issue that we can deal with.
Okay.
We have a big elephant in the house. The big elephant in the house is the dissolution of South Africa. The big elephant in the house is to deal with invasion and occupation.
First things first.
The big elephant in the house is to restore and re-establish the indigenous monarchs. Then once we do that, we are interrelated. So ngene endlini siyikhulume lena siteke lendzaba lena ayihluphi ingaze ibe a problem to anybody.
Okay.
We understand our dynamics. Those are internal issues, these are housekeeping issues. Nobody has a right to them except us as indigenous people of the African continent.
Yeah.
So let me quote Kwame Nkrumah, when he took over Ghana. He said, let us get the problem out. Let us Africans get into our house, close the door without the problem being amongst us, and start dealing with our internal issues. Now, this is what Africans has to do. There is no point today people start, marching against King Mswati and saying there's no democracy Eswatini and all that kind of stuff. Democracy according to whose standards? Democracy according to whose chapter?
But as I was saying, we have, for generations, we've sort of been indoctrinated that democracy is the only way. And most people don't know any other way. They believe that for a better life, there has to be democracy.
Banimanga is because they can't think out of the box. Yabona iparrot. Uyayifundzisa. Kuthi good morning. Now it's good morning. Good morning. That's the parrot. The parrot cannot think beyond what it was taught. Parrots.
Yeah.
Let us go out there and find ourselves. Let's stop being about good morning. Let's become ourselves. The famous saying yaga Robert Sobukwe at sea. When will we call our souls our own? When? Because it's my brain progression is according to the colonial teachings, standards. Aguna standards sabo babata here. There's no standards sabo xetshwayo here. Or bomakikele or popileji. We don't have those standards. Genocide is namhlanje.
Exactly.
Good see. That has been taken away from us.
Yeah, it has, definitely. And okay. It proves that point of genocide that really there is a case here.
There's a case here.
Yeah. Because even people of Swaziland, for instance, they are not talking about there's wrong with our monarch as it is. Let us improve the system that we have, which we are proud of as Amaswat. But no, there's no democracy. We don't want this thing of a monarchy. Democracy. You know what I mean? That's my point about being brainwashed, indoctrinated to believe that, look, the Western system of democracy is the best.
But the ANC's got these famous internal meetings. They call it lekgotla, right?
Yeah.
What is lekgotla? Do you know what it means?
Oh, it's a meeting. It's a meeting to discuss serious matters. It's a gathering.
To discuss serious matters. And then what do they do after discussing those serious matters?
Well, find solutions basically,
And after finding solutions,
talk to the
after talking to them, they
general
implement.
people. Yes, and
Right.
implement. Yeah.
When they are in that lekgotla, nabasetinkundleni,
Yes.
they
Won't level. Yeah.
they agree. They don't impose those solutions. They agree on them.
They discuss them thoroughly.
They find a consensus.
Yeah.
And that is our indigenous way of doing things, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Are we in agreement that it has always been our way, our culture, our custom to do things?
No, true.
Now, in that process of finding a solution, aren't you calling that democracy?
It is.
Ngiphi lebayifunako manje? Ngiphi?
Okay, well, it's maybe it's got to do with power. We need to see a different figure at the top from time to time. But that brings me back to the point of wars and everything. That was the tendency even back then. That look, Mkhatshwa usiphethe kabi man, angamgwazi and then I take over, that kind of a thing. I mean, it's a human nature to fight for power and influence.
It's not an African nature. It's a European nature.
Are you saying?
Yeah.
Are you saying before the white men came here, there were no wars?
There was wars.
There were wars.
There were wars, right?
For power.
Yes. You see,
wars over land, over livestock, over whatsoever economic issues or other commodities we're fighting for.
But then, those wars never changed the system.
Okay.
They continued with the system.
But not the system, yes, but some of them were genocidal. Can we agree on that?
Give me an example.
Yeah, amongst ourselves.
Example.
Africans.
Example.
I was talking about the youngest nation. How was it formed?
Let's not even go there.
Okay.
Don't take me 400 years ago.
I mean, it's a very recent period.
No, don't. I'm not really interested in that.
Okay.
A kingdom that was there from 625 AD.
Yeah.
That never had a problem up until a white man came. Right? I don't want to go into the establishment of the Zulu monarch.
No, because just as an example,
hold on.
Because we're trying to
hold on. Angfuni go to create an in-house problem. Young Tolamas. But for me to be able to articulate on what you're saying, you must remember kune monarchy yakamthetho omthetho bekune monarchy yakazwide la ngibuya khona mina uyangithola mas. So if you go back to that history, I don't think you will want us to discuss that.
It's a different ball game.
It's a different ball game. Le ifuna singene endlini.
Okay. No, you've answered me.
But we have people who came labafika basicabanisa.
Yeah.
We need to deal with them. Nabasebaphumile. Sitawubitana thina nabomthethwa nabomageba nabodlamini nabahula the Gorenhaiko in the Western Cape sihlala phansi sithi siyendani ngalokho.
Okay.
So this is where the spirit of the relationship between Indigenous Forum, African transformation movement and subsequent relationship between African transformation movement and MK.
Okay.
So, but they still have, with the relationship between Indigenous Forum with the 12th Apostolic Church and ATM, it's cemented. It's there. There's no question about it because we have the shared value. So for me, is the question of ATM and MK in terms of, detailing the restoration and the re-establishment of the indigenous monarchs and the dissolution of South Africa. You see, one way or the other, either now or 100 years down the line, South Africa is going to dissolve. South Africa has to dissolve. It cannot continue like that.
No, definitely.
Ngisafunela igama la the soothsayer. Ubaba Credo Mutha. Ubaba Credo Mutha had a vision that South Africa is going to disintegrate. And a lot of people thought, I don't know, but they thought he was talking crazy. He was not talking crazy. South Africa must disintegrate for the indigenous people to be liberated.
No, I mean, he was a prophet. I think he was seeing seeing this meeting and the meetings you've had with the various people. And I mean, they've been grouping, like the Africans themselves, I mean, some groupings have been calling for, they wanted to secede from the country. They want to secede. Western Cape, their groupings.
Look, in Western Cape, you've got Cape, they call themselves Cape whatever. They want to secede and form a state. You see, those guys are another group of clowns.
Yeah.
Cape, its original name is Camisa. When General de Almeida came on the 1st of March, 1510, he found Goring High Corner.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That story has never been spoken about. Go into your Google. Salt River War. The Battle of Salt River.
Yeah.
That was Goring High Corner that defeated General de Almeida. That piece of land belongs to the Goring High Corner kingdom. It doesn't belong to anybody else.
True.
So they cannot secede on occupation. So they want to continue occupation of Goring High Corner kingdom. That's what they're implying.
Yeah.
Are they not clowns? They are clowns.
Yeah,
Trust me.
We're dealing with issues from the surface. What you brought here is that we need to go deeper to the genesis of things.
Go to the history of Gogosowa. Go to the history of Trosowa. In the so-called Cape Town. It's called Camisa. It's not Cape Town. Cape Town, it's another genocide. And Goring High Corner, the genocide has been immense to such an extent that they even changed their family names. They changed their family names. Most of them, their surname is Dutch. From their original identity, now they're identified as Arendt, some Banban, Feldun, Foster, and they say they're indigenous. Isn't that genocide? Are we not proving genocide further?
Yeah.
We are proving genocide further.
Okay.
They can't speak their language. Their home language is Dutch. Turned Afrikaans. That's genocide further. Killing their own culture. I mean, killing the Goring High Corner culture.
Yeah.
That's genocide. So we have a case of genocide. South Africa cannot continue.
It's a big one. Yeah. Okay. we can only hope that, I'm not sure maybe you've got information in the internal discussions amongst those who really want to bring this case up, who want to restore the monarchs. Is there a case? Is there any process? What have you heard?
It's premature now.
Okay.
It's premature for me to say something.
Okay.
But there's a movement towards re-establishment of the indigenous monarch.
Okay.
There is a movement to the evolution of the United Kingdoms of Azania. Not the revolution, an evolution. Those kingdoms were there before.
Yeah.
So we are evolving back to them in unison. That is why it's called United Kingdoms of Azania. So the question is, people can choose to be part of a genocidal establishment called South Africa, or they can be part of an evolution called United Kingdoms of Azania. But it's imminent.
Is it?
It's imminent. Even the gods and the ancestors, they've signed it off. Whoever will try and put this fire is going to be burning his own face. It's imminent. It's coming.
Okay.
When, how, I will not detail it at this stage.
Okay.
When that time comes, you will be the first person to bring it to the attention of the world.
Okay.
Exclusively guaranteed from Indigenous Forum.
No, we're looking forward to that. And let's see where it takes us and how it resolves many issues that are really bedeviling the country, I should say. Because now there's Trump, there's Afrikaners whining in their corners, everything. The foundation of it is what we're talking about. The noise today, it goes back to what we really have been talking about. And yeah, I really need to thank you for coming once more and for coming to the people's side all just to raise these issues, because they have never been really thoroughly canvassed in many platforms the way you are doing. And sitting here, I'm thinking about the school children. What history are they being taught today? Are they being taught the correct history, or for them it's also, no, in 1652, the first men landed in South Africa to build a refreshment station and then they decided to stay. You know, that hogwash we were taught in school. I mean,
Yeah.
really,
The only time
Vasco da Gama found the sea road to India in 1498.
Exactly.
That's what we were taught. Basically, actually, we were reciting it in standard 3. Not
I'm
even
telling you.
teaching, we're just reciting it. So, well.
The restoration and the re-establishment of the indigenous monarchs can mean a lot of benefit for the indigenous people in total. And, well, contrary to what the Europeans will wish for, because the re-establishment of the indigenous monarchs will stop the shipping of our minerals out of our country. It will stop that.
Yeah.
The restoration of the indigenous monarch will see industrialization of our kingdoms, whereby the standard of our people is going to be upgraded. the restoration of the indigenous monarchs will restore our sovereignty and our pride, our culture, our tradition, our religion. The restoration of indigenous monarchs speaks of our connection with our Maker, our God. And this is where the devil will get out of our lives, the devil called South Africa. Because that devil has brought us a lot of misfortune, has brought us poverty, has brought us corruption, has brought us death. Every election, there are a lot of people that are going to be, killing each other to maintain the colonial system. You will never see that with monarchs. That is why there are no deaths in Eswatini. That's why there are peace Eswatini. This is the peace that is spoken about in Esther 13:2-5.
Yeah.
So the establishment or re-establishment of indigenous monarch, it's ordained by God and our ancestors, and nobody can ever stop it. And the restoration and the re-establishment of the indigenous monarch is led by a man who understands God and his will. Chief Apostle Nonunga. And Tina, as the servant of God and him being the servant of his Maker, we will make sure that it happens.
Okay.
And thanks for hosting me once again. And thanks for giving us an opportunity to enlighten our people. I would like to challenge people, their mentality. Let them research on these things that we are talking about.
Yeah.
They must not let the politicians lie to them and believe on a pipe dream. Democracy is a pipe dream. Democracy has never been a solution.
Yeah.
The solution for the indigenous people in Africa is the restoration of the indigenous monarchs. The colonial system will never, ever bring solution to our plight as indigenous people. Ngiyabonga mnakethu.
No, sibonge kakhulu. I think, we'll have to invite you again some other time. There are a lot of issues to unpack still.
Tiningi mnaka singeke siticede ngelanga linye nje. Tiningi kakhulu.
Yeah.
And our people needs to be enlightened. I don't want to say to be educated, but enlightened. They gotta be made aware of who they are, because liningi asitati ukuthi simbumani.
No, it's true. Even though I've been saying ukuthi abantu abaningi have been indoctrinated to believe ukuthi democracy is the only way for a country to prosper. But at the same time, there are people suffocating, yearning for what you're talking about. Spaces where for self-determination as nations. But this has been now reduced to as tribal, tendencies, which is not true. It's the suffocation. People feel suffocated. Some of them feel suffocated that, look, we need our space where we can be ourselves the way we were before anything else.
But I attended a national prayer, Eswatini. I was invited the 25th, if I'm not mistaken, of January. Wow. I've never seen such unity. I've never been so proud of a nation than being proud in Maswati. And fortunately, Babe Zuma was there. And Babe Zuma felt that unity and wished this could happen in South Africa.
Yeah, wait, now that you're joking, my memory speaks strongly about the issue of restoring the monarchs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Babe Zuma, if afuna kubona lendvu yendega, we must restore monarchs. And yena being the chief, he is the person that is supposed to be in the forefront of the restoration of the monarch.
Yeah.
Putwami, I was moved by that event, Eswatini. And so lendo ikhulunywa in the international media about a abuse of power by the king. It's a lie. It's let me tell you, it's a propaganda that is spread by those who wants to destroy indigenous monarchs. Those who are still pushing Dam Diversus, Romanus Pontifex, Inter Caetera, because those forces are still there.
Yeah, that's another, it's a topic for another day.
Yes.
Because we need to agree that the monarchy itself is not a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, but then other issues can be discussed on how the monarchy is being, the monarchy system is being implemented. That's a different topic altogether.
Of course. Those are the internal issues that I actually spoke about.
To them,
you know, because His Majesty himself is a welcoming man, down to earth. He's a man who listens. I don't know if whoever that is tried that avenue. But that's a topic for another day.
That's a topic for another day. Yeah, we've got to deal with it thoroughly. Oh, thanks a lot again. And to our viewers, listeners, our details are here. You can comment, you can like us, you can subscribe. That's okay. Special plea to business people. We've got something special for you as well to talk to us if you want your products and services to reach new people. Our details are provided on the screen. Until next time.